This is Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology. We're dealing today with the work of Immanuel Kant, and we've now worked up to his Transcendental Analytic. I've put on the board here a picture, because I sometimes think pictures are good in trying to understand Kant. Kant, of course, claims in the early part of the critique that his book would have been far too long if he had given examples or pictures that would allow us to understand what he's saying. And of course, if you actually read the Critique of Pure Reason, you might think that as we get towards the end of the book, it gets a bit redundant. I was reading it on the plane yesterday because it's something nice to do. If you're stuck on a plane, stuck in an airport, just pull up your Kindle and read the Critique of Pure Reason in German, and all of life is good. It's all wonderful then, but it does get repetitive, particularly in the German. Anyway, you've got this is the realm of things in themselves. We don't know what's out here, but it's a bunch of happenings. This gets filtered through the pure a priori forms of sensibility. Okay, space and time comprise the pure a priori forms of sensibility. And when we have whatever's out here getting filtered through space and time, we have particular experiences. Maybe a white spot, a certain shape. Can be any kind of thing here, but it's a particular experience, if you will. Now, the Transcendental Analytic starts where the Transcendental Aesthetic leaves off. Now, we got these particulars, but we really don't, in most of the time, experience particulars this way. I look out in the field and I see a rabbit, right? I don't think of all the little particular intuitions. Now, when I use intuition, I mean those particular sense impressions that comprise the rabbit, or here's a table. I mean, there are all kinds of perceptions I'm having here, right? But yet, the table seems to have a kind of a unity, right? And it's brown and it has this shape. What Kant tries to show in the Transcendental Analytic, he starts with the analytic of concepts and then moves to the analytic of principles. In the first, the analytic of concepts, Kant tries to show that an empirical concept, which is a product of the understanding, is that by which the manifold of sense is united. Okay? Hold on to that. That by which the manifold of sense is united. So, I have empirical concepts of the understanding. And if you will, these are, again, a kind of a filter. These empirical concepts of the understanding that are rules by which particulars are united. And we come out with, that's a bunny rabbit, see, you can tell by the ears. It's very different than a horse. Although there, see, you can have all these things. Anyway, I have a concept of horse, concept of bunny, a concept of sun, up in the air there, right? So the empirical concepts are rules by which percepts now form an object. An object is that by concept of which the manifold of sense is united, okay? It's one of those little Kantian things that you should always remember, particularly if you're out swimming. An object is that by concept of which the manifold of sense is united, okay? So we now have gotten ourselves to the point of having objects in the world, empirical objects in the world. But we're not done yet, because these empirical objects in the world are related to each other in very particular ways. And this now, ways in which these particular objects in the world, now this is a sheep, they all look the same. Okay, the way that these things are related now get run through another grid of the analytical principles, and they relate to each other in accordance with certain categories, and thus in accordance with certain laws of association, if you will. All right? Now, there's a long history of laws of association. If you want to read about this, go read Locke, Berkeley, but particularly Hume, who gives us, kind of a psychology. Sometimes he's called an associationalist, right? He lays out how objects are thought, what their associations are, how we might augment them or diminish them, or how we might relate them. That's all part of our mental activity. Kant's read this, but he wants to place this on firm German soil, universality and necessity. Now, this gets to be fairly complicated stuff. But in a very famous part of the critique, Kant argues that the understanding, that is der Verstand, right? Verstand. I don't know if you can read that, you might. Verstand connects empirical concepts up by way of certain overarching principles. And you're saying, what are they? Well, guess what? The four general principal groups are quantity, quality, relation, and modality. And where does Kant get these? Well, he thinks he gets them out of the tradition, going all the way back to Aristotle. Okay? So now hold on to these. These objects here, objects by concept of which the manifold of sense has been united, are related to each other in terms of quantity, quality, and then relation. Well, they're related to themselves. They have quantity, quality, and relation. If you notice, this doesn't give you quantity, really. I mean, quantity, quality, relation, and modality. Now, when I talk about modality, I mean possibility and necessity. Okay, so now I'm going to erase this, but you're keeping it in your mind's eye, and you're thinking about quantity, quality, relation, and modality. And he says, well, quantity, I can think things as unity, right? I can think of them as plurality. I'm thinking of them as totality. Now, if you actually read the critique of pure reason, you're going to notice that Kant thinks in threes a lot. This is his architectonic, it's called. His desire to always have three things to talk about under everything. Quality, this gets very complicated, and it's not altogether important that we know this, but we need to know one of them. Reality, negation, limitation. Here's the one we need to know. This is the very important one. Relation, okay? Here we're talking about substance, which unites particular objects in time, perdurance through time, causality, that connects particular objects causally, and then reciprocity, which he seems to have been giving. I think you like Newton on that one. That's generally not conceived to be an important category here, not nearly as important as these two. These are the most important for us and for theology in general, and modality. Actuality, I suppose you could say there are three modes, huh? This way: actuality, possibility, necessity. If you read Kant, he gives nice little arguments why there are these three things. But I want you to hang on to substance and causality. Causality, or substance, is going to relate particular unities, right? Here's a rabbit stage, here's a rabbit stage, here's a rabbit stage, here's a rabbit stage, into a rabbit, right? Perdurance of these particular unities through time. And causality is going to relate rabbits to dogs. Dogs cause the death of rabbits, right? So there is some kind of connection here, a relationship between the two, and we'll pick this up next time. I am Dr. Dennis Bielfeldt of the Christ School of Theology, and I'll be right back with you with the pure concepts of the understanding.